And then we moved on to 3D modeling. I made this iron sword here. It took me like a couple of different attempts to make like a convincing looking sword, because I wasn't quite happy with like previous versions that I did, so I went back and like made this one, and this was like the first time I used Substance Painter, so I wanted to make sure it looked very realistic, very heavily used, and because it's made of iron, so like it's going to be like a bit rusted over time because of like oxygen and water. So I wanted to make it look, you know, strong, sturdy, and quite heavily used. Then I made a ceramic jug. I used a reference image, and then I made sure it came down to the last particular detail to make sure it looked like the correct material, and even like down to like the painting around the actual item itself. Then I just made a simple wooden torch which you would use to like light fires and such. Yeah.
Oh yes, it's me. So I'm Adam, and I was a 3D modeler, and I also helped out on quite a bit of pre-production work for this project. So first of all, I made an audio list gathering what sounds we would need for this project, and then I also made a proposal which was outlining the basic idea of what we were going to do for our game. So then, after I finished all that, I moved on to 3D modeling. This was an initial cart I made, an initial Iron Age cart that I made. For this, I looked at lots of different references of Iron Age carts, and then I chose one that I thought was best suited for this project, and looked at that and helped me make it most realistic as possible when I was designing it. So this was also a wheel. It was the same again. I also got reference. With this wheel, I made a couple of different versions, which was to bring realism into the project. And with this wheel, unfortunately, it had to be sort of tweaked a bit in the game, because when I made it, it came out sort of a bit too thin and looked a bit off in the project, in the actual game. So, and then I also made 3 different versions of the card. So I made a clean one, a sort of slightly dirty one, and then sort of one that was really sort of mucky and yeah. The reason for that was I used it again sort of to create sort of more realism, and then made it look like the round was actually living. It's like this cart up here, for example, was one that was like, you know, that had just been freshly made. This one down here was sort of had been used for a little while, and sort of minimal wear and tear. And the one over here was sort of made it look like so that it had just been used so much they just put it aside and abandoned it. But that one wasn't the best, and that had to be redone, which was up here. This is the more up-to-date mucky version, even more mucky than the previous one, I will admit that. It looks a lot better. Again, sort of to create realism, make the brown living. And then down here, I made a trough for the project, put in the round, and it was sort of, again, realism, all that living. Okay.
Mr. Jaden Taylor.
So I did like pretty much all the coding. You will see it in action later, but this is basically it. This is just for like stamina pretty much, and just having a stamina system. And then this little box here is just so that they can sprint, and then there's like a whole lot of different other mechanics that go into it. It's very complicated. There was like, I don't know, 5 lots of different problems for every code I wrote, so I had to keep fixing it as well. And whenever I made new code, other code broke. And it eventually got to a point where everything's working okay. Is it best? Probably not. Could improve it, definitely. But for what I've done, I would say it was pretty good. A pretty good amount that I've managed to do. But it just needs a little improvement, I think. Right.
I'm Ben, last introduction for this project. I was the 3D lead for the team. This is a personal mood board I've made, kind of get my idea around everything. As in, this is another like personal mind map, just kind of help get my head around everything I need to do for like asset lists and all of that. Which is what I've got here. It's just kind of a list of all the things we could take a look at, and I've tried to get as many images as I can for like reference material for concept artists. I've tried to use as many like official sources as I could, but some of them obviously I've got to use like replicas and envisionary kind of things. You know what I'm saying? Then included some pictures from our trip to Tehidy, which everybody in the group has, but like I say, so there's loads more than this. We've tried to use this to create a as replicated landscape in the game as possible, to get it as accurate as we could. As in, then once we did all of that, we also recorded Foley sound effects for the game from the trip as well. So this is like early models we started out with, kind of just going over, getting really early on, so we're still kind of getting the learning curve there, but after this, you know, I say just getting early textures, but after we got like over this learning curve, we started to really get to high detailed models, kind of like stuff like this. I was saying that trying to make things again look as accurate as possible, realistic, for the sake of it. Whilst taking some creative like leeway with it as well, make things look more interesting. We've got kind of like a talk here, a lot of polygons. It's like not the best, I will say, because it does textures do stretch at the middle, look a bit weird, but it's like it's not too noticeable with how the model's kind of smaller. And then you've got like a play, ceramic kind of cup in a sense, because wasn't really any reference material for this. Like, and it was just kind of like, did they have cups? Some say yes, some say no. So it's just kind of taking a bit of creative leeway with that. I was like, oh, let's just make one. Why not? We've obviously got a bowl here. And then they've got a knife down here in the bottom and a spear at the top. And that's it.
Okay, so we do have a few videos to show you. Excellent.
I'll just turn the lights off these for a minute.
Jay, is the gameplay one there?
So you've got two to show you. One's gameplay and one's the actual cutscene. Okay, all right.
So this is the
Can you make it full
gameplay
screen,
one.
Emily? Can you?
Yeah, yeah.
Good, mate.
This is the gameplay.
Assassinate.
Definitely looks lived in.
Time machines.
I'm gonna just keep executing them like that. Survive on 10 health for like a minute.
Looks better than Lord of the Rings Golem, I'd say.
Objectives.
I eventually die because I'm writing this gun on for too long.
Bleh.
actual cinematic for the project.
Yeah, it actually looks nice.
Really great, yeah. Well, it is there.
This is the hill fort, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we might give us some feedback if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I've not met you guys before, so hi. So I'm Anne. I work for Cornwall Council's Strategic Historic Environment team. So we do strategy and policy with everything to do with heritage in Cornwall. And as part of that, I commission an awful lot of reconstruction work on sites. And I've got to say, I am so impressed with what all of you have done on this. You know, the level of detail and the amount of work that you've put in to look for the authentic sources and to recreate from those. Because basically, what I'm doing when I'm commissioning something like this is it's trying to find a way to show visitors to a site how to actually understand the site. So they're standing there, they're looking at, you know, the lumps of Tehidy, and they think, okay, right. Most people, you know, just walk through it. They don't even see the archaeology now. So what we're doing with reconstructions like this is to take them back there, to let them actually see what it was, to let them understand what the site was, you know, all the things that would be there. So yes, basically they have that understanding. And I think what's really fundamental to that is using all the sources, using all the evidence that we get as archaeologists, because I was an archaeologist until my knees stopped working, basically, so now I've worked behind a desk. And it's everything that we find in archaeology and reading sites and things like that, and putting it together and telling the story from that, so it's all the evidence. And I'm just so impressed with the level that every single one of you that have done. I mean, yeah, in terms of the technology and, you know, and the science behind it and the modelling and all stuff like that, that's way over my head, I have to say. Way over my head. So all credit to you guys for that, way beyond me. But in terms of the reconstruction, the level of accuracy and the level of thought and detail that you've gone to, and looking at all the sources of material from archaeological sites and things like that, that is exactly what I'd be looking for in a commission. It's exactly what I'd want, because that's what we want to do. We want to show people what we know about a site. We don't want to sort of, you know, make it more than it was and sort of embellish it too much, because that's saying things that we really don't know. But I think what you guys have all collectively done is really sort of capture that really well, and the level, you know, you've done some of your own thinking behind it. You know, how would this work? How would it play out? But you've done it in a really sensible way, in a really intelligent way. Because you've thought, okay, yeah, it's going to be lived in, it's going to be muddy, it's going to be, you know, everything that they had would be important and precious to them, and resources. It's all, you know, we say reuse, recycle now. That was absolutely everything that they did was that. So, you know, things would, I mean, perhaps one thing I'd say is things would be more patched and repaired, and, you know, so think about that a little bit as well. Because everything that they made would be important to them because of the effort that goes into it. But yeah, that level of detail and the archaeological accuracy that you've tried to pick up in that, I am seriously impressed. And this is also quite cutting edge in terms of archaeological reconstruction as well, which is why I was really keen, you know, talking to Steve, to try and get you guys involved to start getting this for sites at Tehidy. Because normally you have lots of really quite conventional sort of drawings of reconstructions, that, you know, static paintings or whatever, which, okay, they're great, that's what's happened all the way through, but now I think, you know, doing this, putting the gaming element, the digital element to it, to me, it just brings it to life so much more, and I think it's sort of the way forward with heritage and archaeological reconstruction. So and there aren't many people out there. I mean, you might know the work of Shadow Tour, which I mentioned a few times when I try and show people what I mean by this. And they work with Time Team, and they do that, but there's very few others at all. So, you know, this really is, in terms of me and my profession and heritage archaeology and reconstructions, this is right up there, you know, and it's something that I would encourage all of you, you know, if you have an interest in this, to sort of go out there and develop in terms of careers, because it is at its early days, but I think there's so far to go with it. I mean, again, Steve knows, there's lots more sites at Tehidy that I really would love to see this sort of work happening at, and it's my job to try and get funding to try and make that happen, so it can happen, which is never easy. But having this here, I think this demonstration is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm really impressed by what you've done, and I'm not you know, I'm not saying that just for the sake of saying it. I genuinely am. You know, the level of detail, I really wasn't expecting that, and the thought processes that you've all shown with your mood boards and the fancy digital stuff. Yeah, I'm really quite impressed by that. You know, I mean, there's looking at it, I suppose, in terms of critical elements, and critical isn't the right word, it's this at all, but it's sort of suggestion.
Professional observation.
Professional observation, thank you, that's a very good one, yeah. I think, bearing in mind where the site is, so on the coastal plateau, it would have been quite exposed to the elements, so I think I would have perhaps had less tree cover there. Imagine it's sort of a bit more sort of windswept and open, perhaps. I've already said about, you know, you're absolutely all brilliantly going down the right track with things looking used, muddy, worn, and the level of detail, that's fantastic. But as I said, I think about, you know, elements like sort of patching or mending, you know, it's things like, you know, the car. Imagine if they had a crash in the car and they had to replace one panel with a different panel or something, you know, that you can see there's a patch or a mend on it. So things like that, or, you know, like the textiles, maybe there's, I don't know, mice got in and nibbled one corner, so there's a patch on one corner, something like that. These are really tiny elements that I'm commenting on, to be quite frank. I think with the pigs looked quite modern. I would have made the pigs sort of something a little bit more like a cross between a wild boar and maybe the traditional breed, like with darker skin maybe. But, you know, I guess that's a fairly minor thing to to. I'm saying that it's a really minor thing to change. It probably really is weeks of nightmare work. So I apologise for that. But other than that, yeah, really impressed. And now I'm kind of thinking, God, I really need to get some more funding down to get you guys to do more of this work. That's if you guys have enjoyed it. I mean, if you haven't, then that's it's fine. But in terms of
That's been great.
that's really nice to hear actually. But yeah, in terms of career paths, it's something to think about. Definitely, this level of reconstruction work. And the gaming element you've put in it as well is just absolutely superb. It's just great. And that is the other thing we have in terms of archaeology and heritage and reconstructions is trying to make it interesting to kids, to try and really get their enthusiasm going. And I think that's where the gaming element will really pull them in, and they kind of get heritage by default. They don't even realise they're learning about heritage things because they're enjoying the game so much. So I think that's a really fantastic element too that I'd really like to sort of see and develop. But yeah, hats off guys. I'm blown away with what you've done and the level of detail and thought and intelligence that you've put into this is way beyond what I'd expect a lot of archaeological reconstructors to do that do it as a every day. So
Well done, guys.
thank you. So that's for me.
Thanks. That's probably the highest praise you can give.
Cool. Thanks, Sam.
You guys.
Guys, you got anything?
Well, I've just got a question. I remember you saying, I think Emily said it at the beginning, about the weathers. You've got different weathers and you've got rain and like snow conditions. I wonder how far you've got with that. So, for example, could you do a cutscene like at night or with rain or?
Probably could,
Yeah.
There is rain in it, just
Right.
in a very small area.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Brilliant. I'm well impressed with it all. The fact that you've managed to use like you reference images of the foliage is great. The height map you were talking about, where you take the satellite
that's
imagery,
great.
so you got the actual terrain as it is. The reference to Crane Castle, which is just like a bonus. That wasn't really like even in the brief, but just that reference to it, which is could be expanded on. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, that satellite image is modern day, so we've had to expand the peninsula out a little bit, so it would be like.
Of course, yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, yeah. Well impressed with it.